Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
All right, we are back in full effect in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. Another podcast, we just going back to back, running them today. And it is freezing, but the sun is out, so that's a good thing. And speaking of the sun out, I got somebody that's connected to one of my brother, like my brother for real. Like people say my brother. Jonathan is connected to Chris Shorter, my brother.
Yes,
so
sir.
Jonathan, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yes, sir.
Feeling
Yes,
great.
sir.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been a long time in the coming. So I probably for like 3 years, I've been like, I need you on Detroit is Different. I need you on Detroit is Different. And we've been missing paths and everything like that. But you have such a dynamic story tying to business, entrepreneurship, consulting, politics, academia. It just mixes up. And now like family man in the mix of that. So let's start with Detroit. Detroit and you and what connected you, your family to the city of Detroit?
So I'll say this. I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. And so I moved here in like 2005. And what brought me to Detroit was working with the former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. And so that was one of the best decisions I've ever made, working for a brother that actually was really for the people. I learned a lot about government. At that point, I thought I wanted to be an elected official, potentially a mayor of Flint. And after seeing that and understanding, or I guess overstanding, that politics is a calling and not an aspiration. I had an aspiration. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a great experience, but I think that I'm well suited and can do more and impact the community more as a private citizen and entrepreneur.
Okay, so you're talking about that relationship, Flint and Detroit, and it's definitely like cousin cities. I always say, like, when I go places, I say Akron is the Flint of Cleveland. I say Gary is the Flint of Chicago.
Yep.
And people be like, what that mean? And it's like, you got to be from here to understand it. So and it's weird. It's like Saginaw is the Flint of Flint.
Right.
so what was your family saying when it was like, yeah, I'm about to go down to Detroit? What was your family's take?
Well, my mom and dad was very happy because this was when I moved. When I graduated from high school, I went to school at Florida A&M University, the university. I never had plans of coming back to Michigan. I never liked the winter here. I didn't really see that there was a lot of opportunity for a person like me who's very curious and kind of out of the box and a disruptor. And so, I was happy with just like being in a nice sun in Florida and kind of enjoying the world and travels and things like that. But my parents were happy because as I was coming, my middle brother was moving out to Texas. So they at least had one of their sons, the baby here. And so I was able to, it's an hour drive, 45 minutes when I'm driving to Flint. So I'm able to see my parents more often. So they were excited about that. Okay.
And then Flint has its own culture where it feels it's different than, like, as much as I say Detroit is different, Flint is definitely different itself too, even though some of my favorite childhood, like, cultural heroes and Andre Rison and MC Breed came from Flint, what was it like growing up there and visiting Detroit then, or what were you hearing about Detroit? And then the relationship, everybody got cousins in Flint.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And everybody have cousins in Detroit. Especially.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. So I knew, like those brothers, Andre Rison and MC Breed, I literally grew up around the corner from MC Breed. My oldest brother was best friends with Eric, and Andre Rison was somebody I looked up to. I mean, he was the man, and the moon.
I mean, for most people, I was looking at the Left Eye documentary with him the other day, and I'm like, man, I was forgetting all the details. He was connected with Pac like that.
He was, yeah. No, it was great growing up in Flint. As very young, I remember the transition of when Flint, at least in my neighborhood specifically, where it went from good to bad. And so growing up, I grew up on my block. There was senior citizens. There were actually black and white people on my block. Everybody owned their homes. It was pretty safe, and this was like up until probably third or fourth grade. And then when GM started laying off and Buick City eventually closed down, you start seeing the jobs leaving, people moving out. And then you had renters coming in, and renters basically I noticed that there was now drug houses on my block. But then during the time I actually was in a gang, and most people don't understand that. I was in a gang when I was younger, and it wasn't because I was like super like fascinated with gangs. It was just I needed that for protection. I had to walk to the bus stop every day, which was about a 19-minute walk. And so in the midst of that, I needed protection. I used to like fighting, but I couldn't fight when I was crossing over in different turfs and things like that. And it was the culture. Everybody that I grew up with, all of my boys were all part of the gangs. Most people sold drugs. Fortunately, I had a father in the home, and my dad was a thing. He's my hero, but my dad saved me from a lot of that stuff. I did a lot of things that I definitely regret growing up. But one thing I didn't do is drugs, and fortunately I wasn't, I never got caught for some of the stuff I used to do, from stealing and things like that. But yeah, that was a culture in Flint. We always had this pride about us, like very prideful. Where we come from, we thought Flint was like the best thing ever. And, it wasn't until I went to Florida where I was like, man, like Flint didn't have much. Like it's like a country.
and to understand and like get the perspective of what 90s Flint was like for a lot of us around the culture, the one name that comes to life is Top Authority.
Oh, yeah.
People don't talk about this rap group Top Authority anymore. A lot of people talk about the Dayton Family, but Top Authority was it was like a pervasive, like even down here, it's like somebody was listening to Top Authority. It's like, oh, Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
Please don't let me get in no problems with these kids.
Yeah.
So like a tough, manly culture, on other documentaries, if you watch like anything on the Flintstones, the Michigan State basketball team, they talk about the camaraderie. And it was like a mix of toughness and then also a mix of like just dealing in that chaos of scarcity and what that can be in a community. As we touched on Andre Rison, it's like, man, it's the day before he's drafted, it's a shootout like right in front of his house.
And that was regular. I mean, I honestly remember going to sleep at night hearing gunshots every night. I mean, up until my parents moved out of the city, and this was right before the Flint water crisis. My mom and dad lived in the house that we were born and raised in. It was to a point where when I went to college, I would never come back and stay with my parents. I would get a hotel room. I just didn't feel safe. It was to a point where my parents had to put like bars on their windows, and it was like I wasn't used to that growing up. Because I knew everybody in the hood. Like I literally was connected to everyone. And then, my mom got at gunpoint, a guy came and tried to rob her, and that was the last straw. And I was like, okay, y'all got to go. But no, it was amazing community growing up because, like I said, we all knew each other. We all looked out for each other. I mean, I saw my best friend get murdered when I was 12. I mean, I can tell you some stories about Flint, and one thing I love so much about Flint is that we didn't have a lot of businesses and a lot of fun things to do. We made our own fun, but the people, the community has always been just solid. If you know somebody from Flint, they solid. They're a man and a woman of their word for the most part. We're not shady, and we keep it 100%. So
Yep. And they will be partying all night if you attend a night affair. In Flint. Shout out to Kay that keeps the comedy and a lot of the entertainment going there. And that culture coming down to Detroit. Because I know you all were always traveling down 75.
Definitely.
What was it like traveling down 75?
Yeah, so I didn't start until maybe high school, and I would go to we would always go to the River Rock.
The Rock.
Yeah. So we would like literally, that was the only place that me and my boys in high school, we knew of. So we would party in Pontiac, and we knew a lot of places in Pontiac. But when we really wanted to like do it, like on a Friday or Saturday, we get in the car, drive down to the River Rock, and hope we can get in because I think we had to have fake IDs. I can't remember what it was because there was sometimes it was like 18 and under. I can't remember.
Sometimes 18 and up I think was Friday, and then 21 and up was Saturday or whatever.
Yeah, but no, it was a lot of fun. It was like that was us. I mean, we used to say, "Oh, we going to the city." We was like, "We going to the big city," and we go to Detroit. It's like, "Oh man, we got to come with our fresh gear." And it was fun, and
Okay, so like that culture, and then kind of touching base in Detroit was somewhat of an introduction. Then you go to FAMU, and you spoke of Mayor Kilpatrick and what he represented. But along with Mayor Kilpatrick, people like, right now, assistant city manager. I spoke. My brother, Chris Shorter, from this neighborhood, like Central High School, like real Central High School, not like Central for a semester or whatever, or Central neighborhood, real Central High School, city manager, Austin, Texas, huge metropolis.
Oh, yeah.
People such as yourself. FAMU had a Detroit culture that existed and still exists to this day.
No question.
Almost like a fraternity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so Chris, let me touch on Chris, and then I also want to talk about the culture that Detroit had at FAMU. Chris was one of the first people I met my freshman year. And I wasn't actually interested. Chris Shorter is an alpha, beta nu alpha specifically. I wasn't interested in alpha. I wanted to be an omega because my dad's an omega. But when I went down there, I've never met alphas like the brothers of beta nu before in my life. And I met Chris actually on a freshman visit, or I'm sorry, I was still in high school. It was a college visit. Met him. He brought me in, and he was this guy who was just like, man, he was kind of scary. Like he's like,
he's very even to the he's has like an intimidating presence.
Yeah,
so that he'll laugh, but it's still like intimidating. I feel for his sons. It's like, damn, it's like that's a different type of guy. Like, did you clean your room? It's
exactly.
Like, oh, man, did I?
Nah, but he took, and that's one of the things I love in FAMU. It's our motto is excellence with caring, and so everyone kind of just like wrapped me. Like I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends or family at Florida. But I remember my first 2 weeks of school. I remember calling my parents. I was like, I love this. I feel at home. People like grabbed me. Was like, oh, you need a ride to the Walmart. You need to pick up something. I got you. You need food. I got you. So I started seeing that in beautiful black and brown people from all over the world, which most people don't understand when it comes to HBCUs. People think, oh, it's not diverse. HBCUs is very diverse. HBCUs, I had in my home alone, I was in a scholarship house. I had somebody from England, Haiti, Trinidad, California, Chicago, Louisiana, Jamaica, a few other places. But that alone, we just all shared the same, skin color, but we all were from different places, different cultures, some economic, social economic differences. But then like the Detroit culture, let me not forget, Detroit was doing things that no other city was doing, not even Chicago. Like we used to compete with Chicago a lot. So like the Chicago Club and the Michigan Club. But Detroiters had people like my sister, Arian Reed, who opened up a store in the mall, in the main mall, while she was still in college. Tommy Duncan, who now is like killing it. He just sold his healthcare company. But he had actually three. It was called Tommy D's. It was a shish kebab place. He had one in the airport. Now keep in mind, he's still in school. Yeah. He had one in the airport. He had one on like Florida State's campus, and then he had another location. But he was doing all of this while he was in B school with us. Wow. We had another cat, Melvin. Melvin had all these different hustles. If you needed anything, Melvin was the hookup man, literally. Like I had fake IDs and everything. But everybody, the way that we hustled, the way we moved in the Detroiters, they were doing boss moves in college while still getting an education and getting on the dean's list and honors and things like that.
And that kind of carries over to Chris's ways in management. Like I sometimes always pick up different ideas about how he approaches things. Yep. But a lot of those organizational skills were that, steel sharpening steel, like iron on iron, like, hard press, real talk about like, that didn't work. That's horrible. Yeah. People will not respond to that. Yep. Like almost hard critique where you like, damn.
And from an operation standpoint, because I worked with Chris, we were part of a few organizations together outside of Alpha, but I got a chance to see how he works and how he thinks. I mean, this guy is like a brilliant operator. I think he's the world's best COO for any company, any city. And when he got that promotion to City of Austin, I wasn't like surprised. I mean, what he was doing in D.C. was game changing. I mean, the mayor understood how important and how valuable it was when he was like really just like killing it. But Chris is an amazing person. I love Chris. I got a chance to stay with him. When he was living in D.C. I haven't been able to visit him yet in Austin because I just haven't been. But he keeps asking me, when are you gonna come in and check him out in Austin? So I'm looking forward to doing that.
I am too. And I know like this, soon will be South by Southwest, where a lot of people are going to be in Austin. Yep. And that's like right in some of his wheel alley, right up his alley. And you talked about Mayor Kilpatrick and Mayor Kilpatrick's office, because you worked right there. What was it like? What was the culture?
Man, it was the best job I ever had, because for me, it was where I first realized that it's not just about a job and it's not just about money. I took a pay cut to come here, but I actually liked working with everybody who I work with. And see, this hopefully history talks about this. Right now, it's not, and there's a lot of different reasons why I think it is. But in the midst of, Kwame Kilpatrick made some personal mistakes. What he didn't do is make the city go into bankruptcy. Like a lot of the stuff that you're hearing now, most people never even met Kwame, and like people have such divisive and very
strong opinions about Mayor Kilpatrick.
Never met him. Never met him at all. I was with him every day. I was one of his senior advisors. So I literally, from 7 in the morning to about 11 o'clock at night, I was with him every meeting, every community meeting, and saw how hard he worked. So people try to minimize and say, oh, he was a great speaker. Yeah, he was that, but he also was very intellectual. The brother was sharp. I used to write some of his speeches, his talking points. He would look at he had a photographic memory. So he'll look at a 2 or 3 page document, memorize it, get up on the stage and just kill it. Kwame he was so talented. I learned so much about that brother, and I love him, and I hope that, the president pardoned him. His sons were like my little brothers. Actually, one of them is at FAMU right now. One of the twins are at FAMU, so I'm excited about that. But all of them are now in college. 2 of them all 3 of them are in HBCUs. So I'm happy about that. But what he's done, what he was able to do in the community, the Next Detroit Neighborhood Initiative, that's the only comprehensive neighborhood initiative that any mayor has ever accomplished. And anybody that was around during that time, they saw how obsessive he was to the community, how hard he worked. And so again, they minimize it by his mistakes. As we all have mistakes. I'm not a perfect person, and I don't think anybody, whoever criticized Kwame Kilpatrick, and I always defend him because I love him, whether he makes mistakes or doesn't. I'm a loyal person, and I just wish he and his family the best.
Yeah, and it was such a unique time because the attack on his character was really an attack on young black men.
No question.
Throughout the region.
Yep.
Soon after, I remember when charges were being filed. At the time, Tupac Hunter put in the amendment where it's if you face, if you were incarcerated while in office, then that means that you have to wait another 25 years. And I was like, man, that's a Mayor Kilpatrick law if it ever was one, because they know that he would get out of jail.
Yep.
Even to this day, I think if he were to get on the next mayoral ballot of Detroit, Detroiters will still support him. That's a hard truth for, I think, a lot of people outside the city of Detroit that have other interests in mind of what Detroit leadership should look like and feel like, especially right now. And this is just a Kari Frazier opinion, not even necessarily a Detroit is different opinion, but a lot of what Mayor Kilpatrick was accused of and faced almost times 5, or the current executive administration is completely wow. I can't, some of this stuff I'm seeing is wow, seriously?
It's become a norm and a standard. And so people kind of don't, I don't think people even say wow anymore. It's really disappointing. And again, it's as an entrepreneur, I love that I don't have to be beholden to anyone, and I can speak my truth, and be liberated in my thoughts and in my perspectives. But it's really disappointing when you see African American men and women that are being demonized for just trying to protect their community, serve their community, and empower their community. 'Cause that's what Kwame Kilpatrick was about, and that's what he's still about. But that was scary for a lot of these business people. And they're afraid of that. They're afraid. He made sure that there was equity as it relates to African Americans. And he also had a strong sense of self. So he wasn't beholding or trying to be something, laughing what wasn't funny and scratching what wasn't itching. He was very conscious. And that's scary when you have African American people who are conscious and understand the beauty and the intellect and the power that we possess, what was in our DNA coming from kings and queens from back in Africa, or actually even here, because we were here before anybody else in America. That kind of truthful, honesty. And I'm, for me and with my daughters, I'm talking about that all the time. I'm telling them how beautiful they are, how smart they are. And they don't have to impress anyone but themselves. They come from a lineage of greatness. And so it's in them. It's just for them to possess it and for them to show the world and never be ashamed of it.
Okay. And now we're getting into more of your personal journey.
Sure.
Where did you move to when you moved here in 05?
So when I first moved here, like I said, I didn't know anyone here. And I was like, well, do I like live with my parents and drive back and forth? I was fortunate to find a place. And this was funny because I was living in D.C. and L.A. before I came here. And these Merchants Row was where I first moved. And so it was like these new builds at the time, right on Woodward. And I remember it was like $1,400 a month. For
Okay,
rent.
and right on Woodward and where at? Merchants Row is...
It's right above it used to be called the Breakfast House. You remember that? Yeah, so it's now Hudson Cafe.
Okay, so right where the Woodhouse Spa is, and okay, so like for me, it would be like the Nike outlet, the Under Armour outlet.
Yep.
So that was like just redesigned. I think Mark England may have been in there.
Yeah, Mark England was. Yeah.
Okay. And shout out to he passed, but it was a fashion designer, a world renowned fashion designer that came back and put a store right there, and he would tailor a suit for you.
Yep. Yeah.
For almost as much as you buy what I guess a decent suit. I guess you can argue whatever. Right. A decent suit from any other place. But Mark England was tailoring suits in the shop. That was just astonishing. But.
Yeah. I mean, that culture. I mean, it was great. I mean, although it wasn't a lot of stuff downtown at the moment, because we talked about the Woodward, I used to eat there every day. I was, this bachelor that came. I didn't know a lot of people, so I would meet a lot of people. I met, I knew Joey Cartwright because he actually used to work with Tommy in Tallahassee. So when I would go there, eat dinner every day. I mean, I was a regular, but the parties and that was for me getting the opportunity to meet other young people because I worked a lot. I was always with the mayor. And it also, I guess one of the things that I love so much about working with the mayor is that it gave me the opportunity to really understand community here. Because I'm not from here, I never understood why East Siders and West Siders never really crossed and knew each other. Or, because for me, I just didn't know. I mean, I'm from Flint. But I got a chance to go to community meetings from literally all over Detroit and meet like different community leaders, really understand what the real pride and heart of Detroit was really all about, real hand. And I'm grateful for that because if I would have came here and just worked, I would have stayed in my comfort zone, went to work, hung out with the people.
Really understood the context, or you'd have just connected with your interests.
Exactly.
So like partying when you're younger, and then you get older and have kids. After school activities, you know, you go from the party to the playground.
Exactly.
Or whatever, the basketball field, the baseball field, whatever. So by touching this, as you talk about, like that's the first place you live. How long did you stay there?
So I was there for like 4 or 6 months. But then I was like, man, I mean, I can actually buy a house for what I'm paying for this one bedroom. And so I ended up moving to, it's funny, it's called West Village now. I don't know if it was called West Village back then, but right outside the Indian Village.
And that's one of the things that they say, because I've heard that too. I thought the same thing. And they said, it was always called that. We just never promoted it. I'm like, I always thought this was like next to Indian. That's what I call it, next to Indian Village.
Yep.
So you bought a home over there.
I did.
What street?
So it was on Leach.
Not like one of those huge houses on Burns.
No, it was a new build. So it was at the time, it was a new build. It was a new build, and so I actually bought it right before the recession. So I paid more than what I should have paid for it, but I didn't know. I just knew it was cheap compared to where I used to live in DC and LA. I couldn't afford to buy anything in DC.
It was like a new reality for you to even think. One second, because you were used to LA culture, DC culture. It was like apartment.
And I mean, I ended up buying other, like, I wish I would have been smart enough, but I bought another house in Indian Village for $150,000. I mean, a huge mansion for $150,000, which I thought was crazy. And then rented that out because it didn't need much work. And I wish I would have bought more. I just didn't know. I mean, I was 24, 25 or something like that at the time. And but it was, so I lived there, and then from there, I bought a place downtown, right across from where LCA is. And so got a couple of units there now, but I mean, I didn't know that LCA was going to be there. Like this
when
was
you
like,
bought it.
This was around the time of recession, but it was a good investment. I wish I would have bought more because there was a lot of empty units over there that was going for like $60,000.
Yeah. So like the vision of what's to come next and and how this grows, and just getting into like some property buying, and you're still young. Did you kind of like connect with those different communities any? Like, let's just even talk about West Village, because then that was a whole different feel. Like Vegan Soul wasn't there. It wasn't Live Cycle Life wasn't there.
Yeah. So I mean, we didn't really have community. I mean, I used to just do everything downtown. I mean, it wasn't, there wasn't anything over there like besides, and I didn't know a lot of the neighbors were like older.
Yep.
And so we just didn't connect. I used to party a lot. I used to throw parties at my house all the time. I had a huge basement with like, I think 11-foot like ceilings in my basement. So me and a friend of mine, Hadiatu, we used to like throw parties, and it was like we would party all night, and then we'll come, the after party would be at our place, and it was a great. And then I would wake up the next morning with a hangover,
bachelor life,
and then start working for going to the Manugian Mansion to get ready to roll with the mayor.
So I guess that was at least close to where you needed to go, though.
It's literally like a 2-minute drive.
Yeah, you could walking distance for real.
Yeah.
So that is happening, and so much has changed, and almost every spot you chose to live are now coveted places for property.
Yep.
I know you got to look at that. Do you think that the current residents still had the opportunity to be present? Like, what's your take on like some of these changes that have taken place?
I mean, a lot of the changes have taken place without the residents really even knowing. I mean, it's. I remember at one point I was like, I want to do some investment where it's now called Island View, which is another name that I don't ever recall. I'm like, when did it become Island View?
Yeah.
And I remember riding around trying to find like land that I can buy, like corner lots, particular.
Yeah.
And this was like 5 or 6 years ago, and I just remember seeing all of the corner lots like bought. And then you start seeing Mac being repaved like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, something's happening. Because like from Mac, I mean, the whole Mac strip has been repaved.
Yeah.
And so you can see what's going on now.
And it's really becoming more of a gateway to connect Grosse Pointe to the city. Like almost like Grosse Pointe to downtown. Like that is one of going to become more of a thoroughfare, as
definitely
almost where I guess what Jefferson and Gratiot, because Mac is more of an artery to connect from Grosse Pointe without going down the off the river and everything. So no one would ever think that Grosse Pointe would want to connect with Detroit. But now things are changing.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot in Grosse Pointe, a lot of the folks will start, well, not a lot, but they're still, Grosse Pointe is still old Grosse Pointe in some ways. And so a lot of them don't want that change. They want to keep, those invisible fence, around surrounding.
And in reality, not just invisible fence. I mean, it's actually concrete blockades that blocked some of that.
And it's interesting. So I live in Grosse Pointe now, and I never knew, like, again, I'm not from Detroit, so I didn't know the history of it until I got there, and I was just like, I didn't realize that like Jews and blacks were not quote unquote welcome.
No.
And so you still see some of that. I mean, I fortunately haven't had any issues, but I'm very much so aware. And then I'm also, like I said, with my daughters, very much so keeping them conscious and making sure like they understand that don't ever forget that you're still black. And so always be aware of that and be proud and for me, like, I don't ever acquiesce to, I don't care what community I'm in, but I'm always going to be JQ from Flint and proud to be black. I don't switch up. People switch up based upon the communities that they're in. I mean, if you don't like who I am, then, honestly, I don't really care.
and very much so. Very much so. I mean, when we think about even connecting for this interview, it's through my father, who's been a DAC member since 98.
Okay.
So he's been a DAC member since 98. I don't know when you joined, but just 3 black dudes in the Detroit Athletic Club speaking about, I want to say like possibly the conspiracies of the coronavirus and like what becomes like, it's deep, you know what I'm saying? Just like on the generations between my dad and us and those conversations in that setting. When you talk about institutions that ostracize black people, I mean, for so long, the DAC, I mean, it was Coleman Young that said, if you don't let black members in this club, this club will no longer be in Detroit. Soon after you have some black members.
And I mean, it takes that kind of bold leadership. and courageous and audacity to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
And the thing that's disturbing to me today is that there's not a lot of that kind of those voices in our community, particularly in Detroit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that is okay with the status quo and okay being paid a couple of dollars to be quiet. And, it's really disturbing. And then you see the transitioning of our leadership, in particular, like Detroit still being the blackest city in the United States of America.
Yeah.
But yet does not have African-American leadership that actually are leading. That's problematic. Businesses, there should be more black businesses in Detroit. But, that's something that, like I said, I'm always going to fight for that. I'm fortunate to sit on the Economic Development Corporation board, and we have a really good board. And our board is very, very much so aligned and cautious and conscious about making sure that we make sure we have Detroiters and African Americans involved in this kind of prosperity movement that's happening right now.
And that's what makes some of that so difficult, because the minute that you put the white face in the mayoral office, I was having a discussion with someone from like a board I was leaving. Like, I'm in a lot of community boards. It's like the work you do kind of offers different opportunities. So like social awareness, community stuff. Let's ask Kari if you want to join. And before I used to always question it more and turn it down. Now I'm like, let's welcome it. Let's see what happens to engage this. But as I'm leaving and we're talking about like the face of what's going on and opportunity, because at one point in time it looked at, this is my homie, like my homeboy, friend in business. Phil Cooley was one of the faces where people said, this is an outsider taking advantage of opportunity. Phil Cooley kind of became the face of Mike Duggan. And Mike Duggan now has become like the face of Dan Gilbert. And like I tell a lot of people, it's like both things can be true and both things can be right. Like there are opportunities that I know, that certain business investment and funding would just be way more comfortable given to a Dan Gilbert or a Phil Cooley than Kari Frazier or even other businesses. As a child, it was just striking when Dennis Archer said, it's not up to me to give a black man a casino. And I'm like, damn. You got this many, and then Don Barton went back and got Michael Jackson to come with him, and I'm like, damn, and at the time it's like, man, you got a multi-millionaire person that can buy a casino, and he just got Michael Jackson to say he gonna be in the casino with him. Give him a casino, and like things like that can be striking. Whereas some of the other deals and the relationships, because a lot of this investment, a lot of this funding, that's resurging Detroit on two ways. One, it's definitely a lot of economic interest from the outside coming in, but a lot of that economic interest from the outside coming in, to me, they're leveraging poverty. So they're using CDFIs, HUD funding, government funding, government granting, subsidizing all types of quote unquote risk by doing business in a place filled with poverty, which is adjacent to black people, to basically start their business investment. So it's like they're leveraging the poverty to build business that never would have had interest to actually do business with the people that live there in the first place. And
when you study history, I mean, that's a reoccurring thing. And that's what, I guess what we call gentrification. That's exactly what happens, is to figure out how do you distress a community so much so that, certain people, a certain small group of people can come in and basically take advantage of all of the programs that the community never had access to.
Yes. But by design,
no question,
it's supposed to. I sat and I'm going to just point blank say it was one of the weirdest things ever. I sat in, and many people know this story. The man, I want to say, is it the Ashley apartment building? It's right there on, it's Martin Luther King. Yeah. And in Woodward. And it was a long presentation by the guy in the mayor's office and Alexis Wiley that works with Mike Duggan that said, this company, you can age out, like if people are familiar, like an apartment building can say, hey, I want to access HUD funding to basically subsidize the rent and rent control the people that live in this place to stay in this place. So because I'm going to let basically poor people live here, quote unquote, government, can you give me some tax abatements? The government says, okay, but you need to, we can stick you in this program for 25 years. Year 24 comes up, a lot of people start, rent starts raising. It's going to be like rented use. One person's living next door to another person that's $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then year 25 happens.
Mm-hmm. All
the rents change. Year 26 happens. We're going to sell it to this other company for whatever. That company wants to kick everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
And in this presentation, and I'm like, okay, I understand some of this stuff already. They said, the company that wanted to do this, we said this is unfair and this is wrong. So the next time they met with the mayor, we told them this is how you meet. And I'm thinking to myself, how do they even get a next time to meet with them?
Yeah.
But and then in some ways I'm asking myself, and this is tough because some of these bad deals,
mm-hmm.
some of the predatory practices that have been pervasive in cities like Detroit, and not just Detroit, but Detroit, Jackson, Mississippi, Cleveland, mm-hmm. Chicago, Flint,
yep.
have existed for so long.
Yep.
What role now that as you're in entrepreneurship and consulting, how should Black entrepreneurs look at engaging in some of this programming yep. that has been disproportionately unfair and unjust for us?
So I'm a student of the great Claud Anderson, Dr. Claud Anderson.
Black labor, white wealth.
Yeah, and so when he talks about collective group economics, like the longer I live, the more I realize that the only people that can save us and help us is us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing a lot of work in Tulsa, Oklahoma, around the whole Black Wall Street, and they're getting ready to commemorate the centennial next year of the massacre, not the riots. Mm-hmm. And growing up in school, they said the Black Wall Street riots. It wasn't a riot; it was a massacre from white folks, coming into the Black community, killing people, innocent Black
First
people.
time a bomb was used on American soil.
Yep. By terrorists, and let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
So Dr. Claud Anderson talked about collective economics. And so as an entrepreneur, I'm very intentional and I'm very focused on empowering, educating and enlightening young people and even older people to understand that we have to support each other. We have to work with each other. We have to have a plan. We have to have a strategy, an economic plan and a political plan. And quite honestly, being very focused on that as a single mission. And so for me, when it comes to politics, I've even changed the way I even deal with politics. I can care less if you're a Dem or a Republican. What is your agenda, and how are you going to help with the vision that we have in the ask, like having specific asks for our community and not really worried about any other community? Like, what are you going to do for our community, and how are you going to partner with us, and what have you done? Because a lot of times people will sit and tell you all the stuff that you're going to do, then they get in office and they have amnesia. So I want having a plan, having an agenda, and being succinct, because one thing that you can't neglect is the power of the people. And when we mobilize and we're organized, and we come as a collective voice and a collective unit, we're unstoppable. And then the next thing is the economic plan. I mean, that's something that I'm extremely passionate about. Teaching our young people the importance of all the different elements, from financial literacy to business ownership, and understanding the difference between being self-employed and being an entrepreneur. I mean, a lot of people use this word entrepreneur. I'm actually writing a book about this right now.
That's deep.
Yeah, but really,
we're gonna have to bring you back.
Yeah, man. Yes, I'll let you know. It's supposed to be August the release, but I'll let you know. But then also changing the mindset of what entrepreneurship is, right? I believe in this whole concept of making dollars while making change, and that's actually what the book title is going to be. But not just being a business owner or self-employed or whatever it is. And so let me be very clear, because I love Dame Dash. One of the things Dame Dash said, hustling for your last name, not your first. But then also, he kind of took some flack by saying, why would you get a job and you should be your own boss? I'm not knocking anyone to have jobs. I think there's a place for that for everyone. I think we need employees, but we also need to understand multiple streams. We also need to understand that you can work for someone from 9 to 5, but then after you get off of work, you need to figure out what is it and how you get. You want to be in a place where you can actually control your own destiny. And so you need to hustle for your last name after 5 o'clock, and don't be as dependent. I mean, that's not how you really build real wealth, working for someone, or even being a CEO of a company that you can easily get fired overnight, but having ownership and having multiple streams, because all of your businesses are not going to work. No. So when I started this Soul Air Water, I've been self-funding up to this point. I haven't made any money. Mm-hmm. I haven't made any money. And so the thing is, I never want to be in a place where I can't pursue what I believe in, my purpose, because of money. So my consulting company pays the bills, and the cannabis company that I'm a partner in pays the bills, so that I can actually do the things that matters the most, and that's making sure that clean water have access to marginalized communities, in particular in African American communities. Because if you look over the United States, you have places like Newark, Detroit, Flint, and places all throughout the South that's suffering from lead poisoning and other kind of contaminants in their water. And so one part of it is making sure that people have clean, sustainable, and renewable water. Another part is we're teaching and training people curriculum around water technology in K through 12. And so we're also, helping them to understand the business. All the people that work for me in the Solaire, they're all like from Flint. Born and raised. Either they live there now and so I'm very intentional about the people that I hire, and we have talent. And so we have that. And then the other part is we give a percentage of everything we make every year back to the Flint Water Fund. So for water related, to help people out pay their water bills, to help with water infrastructure. And that's up to the foundation that we write the check to provide. But being able to think about it from a social entrepreneurship, just as yourself, is one thing to be profitable, but it's, to me, I look at it as a triple bottom line in everything that we do, right? We should be careful about how we preserve the planet, so you got planet, you got profit. I mean, you can't be in business if you're not trying to make a profit. Yeah. And then the last thing is people. Yeah. And that's not even in no specific order, but people, being really conscious about what we're doing to make sure that's impacting the world and community. And if we focus on that, and if we spend a lot of our focus and energy on doing that collectively as one unit and collaborating, I mean, I think that's our only answer to improving and enlightening and actually getting back to what Marcus Garvey used to talk about, which is Marcus Garvey is one of my heroes. Yeah.
I mean, the Garveyite thinking, which is, I think it's morphed in so many ways to the Garveyite thinking, and I'm sure it's probably somebody hipping him to some game, but of what we can grasp. I was having this discussion with my dad. The Garveyite thinking empowered the Nation of Islam to look at that and take some critiques into their own businesses and building their organization, which later took the Black Panthers into their own organization and their own paths in engaging the community, which now, as you said, Black Labor, White Wealth, you should read that. If you're a Black person in business, buy that book, read that book. That's a very great book. Also, Powernomics is a good read as well. It should be impactful too.
We're reading that right now. So a couple of buddies of mine actually started a Marathon Club book club after Nipsey Hussle passed away. And so there's different cities that's doing that. And so they reached out to me and said, hey, man, can you get some folks together and start doing it? We actually, this month, we're reading Powernomics. Most of us read it before, but it's like refreshing. You can never, there's so many gems in that book.
And I mean, many books, when they touch you, a book I often reread is Autobiography of Malcolm X. Today is... as we know, as they say, Malcolm X, I mean, I'm fortunate, this is the day he was assassinated. But Autobiography of Malcolm X is one, and there's a couple others. But picking up a book and rereading it as you go through different things in life, especially if it touches you emotionally, like that book, to me, it's like, it's more perspective of the transformation of a man that he made. No question.
Powerful, brother. Like, it's always disheartening when you see our true leaders, those that I feel that was truly called. I mean, it's a special. I can't imagine being a Malcolm X and a Marcus Garvey and a Martin Luther King during that time, or even today. It's a thankless job. I mean, and the reality is, they did it for the love of the people. Yeah. Even though they weren't loved by a lot of the people that was either following or opposed to them that looked like them.
It's much, especially a lot of people recognize the people that oppose
no question.
Malcolm X, but as I always tell people, it's a lot of revisionist history about Martin Luther King. It was so, if it wasn't for young people and a couple of pastors, shout out C.L. Franklin, but very few. I mean, even here in the city of Detroit, the Detroit NAACP didn't want to walk with him. The unions really wouldn't support him. Governor Romney eventually got on board, but it was like one of the back to you say the will of the people encouraged it, where it was like, okay, if I don't jump on board, and really I'm gonna go back to something as recent as 2008. Barack Obama's presidency was not supported by the Democratic Party. Nope. A lot of Black folks weren't supporting, or a lot of older institutions weren't supporting of him. I got kicked out of a meeting one time because I was like, they were like, what do we know about him? I'm like, so we're actually going to question whether we're going to vote for Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. Like, I mean, what am I got kicked out the group for that,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's deep, man. And it's a lot of this stuff goes back to, that's why for me, I take my job very serious as a father. I take it very serious. I take that more serious than any other thing, any business or any other things I'm involved in globally. Is because I'm not expecting, or I don't expect the schools that they attend, I don't care if it's the best schools, to teach them, you know, these types of things. And this is a lot of consciousness. And it's like really teaching kids how to think for themselves, how to go and find and research. And the thing is, now with technology, you can really find out anything you need. You don't have to go to a library, which we still do. I still take my daughters to libraries so they can understand the importance. I love reading books.
I'm a big thumb through it just because I love technology, and I just know how easy this stuff can be changed.
Yep.
I mean, I could, you know, through edits, even if it's a slight edit, like context, the difference between the and a can change,
no question,
the way a person perceives it. And as they're going back and they're telling you they're changing, like Huckleberry Finn, you know, it's no longer Nigger Jim or whatever.
Yep.
But that's the books they're telling you that are changed. But
right.
I mean, you ain't no telling what's happening on your Kindle. If you're really getting, I don't know what book you want to read. It could be, that's why prisons don't allow certain books, because some information they don't want in the book.
Yep. I mean, so my daughters, you know, as we're celebrating Black History Month, I mean, for at least from my house, Black History Month is every day.
Yeah.
And so I'm very intentional, even like from the dials that they play with. Like I'm very specific about the dials. I let because my daughter asked me one time, like, Daddy, why can we only play with black and brown dials? I was like, well, babe, one, I want you to love who you are. Yeah. Everything that you do is a reflection of who you are, right? And so from the person who you serve, if you believe, whatever you believe in, from a faith base or from the books that they read, like that's beauty. And I want you to understand, overstand, because in the world, the schools that they attend now is predominantly white. And so sense of self is so important to me, because I was fortunate in Flint to actually see that, to see greatness, good, bad, and ugly. But like, I was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to Cranbrook as a boarding student, because through financial aid and then obviously through academics too. But for me, it was going to Cranbrook wasn't a bad thing, because I was very comfortable in my skin. I had a sense of confidence that I noticed some of the other black folks that came was trying to, I was like, are you black or white? Like, and so, I mean, my thing is, I want my daughters to really understand the power that they possess, but then also to, like I said, be independent thinkers and doers and not follow the trends. But then Black History starts back during, we're talking about Kush, and we're talking about Timbuktu and Kemet, and that's what my daughter's like. When we started talking about, like, I mean, our conversations are a little bit different. I want them to ask a lot of questions, but I also want them to actually search and look for themselves, because I'm like, I don't give you all the answers. You have access to, you can find some of this, right? And but don't believe everything I say. Especially don't believe like everything with your teachers. It's your teachers,
Don't. You can get this knowledge, and that's where, like, coming up from an African centered school, a lot of this perspective of some of the things that some of my friends run and tell me now, it's like, did you know this? Did you know that? I was like, man, I was hearing that back in, the classes. You're called the Dogons. You're not in the third grade. You're in the Cushites. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Were you what school?
Aisha Shule. Mommy Monty Humphrey in her vision, and now through doing Detroit is Different, and I love these talks because I'm finding out more and the practicality of it. And then as we talk even about the practicality of it, what did family look like for you? That transition from just and I guess I'm jumping a big hurdle. Mayor Kilpatrick, after everything happened with the administration, which was a strategic attack.
Oh yeah,
and this kind of goes back to Black history. As far as I'm concerned, the FBI establishes a target and then drills down. And we know just through Charlie Beckham that Coleman Young had the biggest FBI file of any person at the time. So I can only imagine that Mayor Kilpatrick's FBI file may have started when he was as a state representative. But with that being said, what was happening after Mayor Kilpatrick's administration? Where were you?
Yeah, so I ended up resigning the day that he resigned. I remember, I'll never forget that. It was like September 8th, I believe, of 2008. I remember coming in and I knew that there was people trying to get him to step down and things like that. But he was like, we're going to fight. And he was like, I'm not stepping down, because the reality is he was not fortunate how a lot of like white politicians are, where he can walk away and, you know, he didn't have no trust fund. He didn't have money in the bank. He was I remember him telling me that, and he was like, I'm going to resign. I said, so really? Like, I just didn't see it coming. And so I was like, well, I'm resigning too, because I can't work for another. Like, I knew who the next person was going to be, Kent Cockrell. I was like, I mean, I couldn't work for him. Like, I'm real big on principles, and I was loyal. I'm always loyal. And there was some people jumping.
Flint in you.
Oh yeah,
the gang in you.
yeah. So that was the first time in my life that I didn't have a plan, because I didn't think that was ever going to happen.
That was going to happen.
So I remember putting in my resignation, and because I didn't want to get fired. I was like, I ain't never been fired in my life. I'm not about to get fired now.
Yeah, exactly.
Put in the resignation.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, maybe I go back to DC. I mean, I was really disgusted by Detroit. Yeah. Honestly, like I can
imagine.
I mean, it was like the way that they turned their backs, and a lot of people who like lied, you know, to save themselves from going to jail on Kwame. I mean, it was a lot of stuff that I hope that one day Kwame can actually communicate that to people, people who he grew up with.
I mean, when I read the book that shout out my brother in name and game, Kari Turner wrote, you can tell like it's certain spots where it's like, damn, I know he wants to go deeper, and I know he wants to keep this real, but he also has a pending, you know.
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure the part 2 of that book is going to be an immediate read for Kari Frazier.
No question. I love Kari. He's a great writer.
Yeah.
And great dude. So after that, I ended up, George Jackson, who was the president and CEO of the DGC, called me and was like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I have no idea.
Wow.
I mean, I was always, for me, I was just going to take my time to figure it out.
Yeah.
But he called and said, well, I want you to come work for me. I said, well, doing what? He was like, well, you can just make, give me a proposal and tell me what you want to do. So I went over, worked at the DGC, kind of built out their public policy, as well as at the time they have federal appropriations. We called them earmarks.
Yeah.
And so I was in charge of doing that. And I did that for about 6 months. And then a private company gave me a call. It was a defense and aerospace company that was based in Detroit, called me and was like, yo, you made some major introductions that helped us out in the defense industry because of the relationships I had. He was like, why don't you come work for me? I was like, I knew nothing about manufacturing. I knew nothing about defense. He said, but you didn't know anything about most of the jobs you had in the past, but you're a smart guy. You can figure it out. So he said, give me a number and let's go. So, that was my first swing of a private, big, multi-billion dollar, well, it wasn't billion, but
so did you come in as an employee, or this is you switching into consulting?
No, I came in as an employee. So,
but how long did it take you to be like, damn, I could have did this as a consultant?
Well, so let me tell you, I mean, I got caught in that the facade of corporate life. I mean, it's not. It was so they came in, had a nice salary, right? And I had a nice commission, but then I had a corporate card too. So I had an unlimited corporate card. I mean, we were flying private jets and everything. So I was like, man, this is party and having. And so I was paid to basically entertain folks, to help people. I mean, it was a great experience. And,
the stories they say about it's like he's a lobbyist.
Yeah, right. And it was that we had a lot of fun. We got a lot of stuff done. I made them a lot of money. And in retrospect, I was like, man, I wasn't really making any money during that time. And so I did that for about 4. I think that was the longest job I've ever had. I probably did it for 4 years, and then sequester hit, which the defense spending got cut. That was like 45% of our business. And so I'm a finance guy. So I saw the
writings on the wall.
Yeah, I was on our senior management team. So every month I saw how we were losing $1 million every day. And so I was like, okay, I need to like make an exit. Yeah. So I went over to Pete Carmanos and I said, hey man, I got a business value proposition for you. So I was like, y'all should be doing more stuff in the public space, because the work that we were doing when I was working with the other company. And so he was like, well, why don't you run that? He said, why don't you run our public sector sales business? And so he was like, and then I also have a company called Covacent that's getting ready to go public. And he was like, I want you to be a part, because I was a part of the deal team for the other company when they got bought by a bigger multi-billion dollar company called Tower. Yeah. And so he was like, why don't you do that? So I helped put together the deal structure for that. And then I was running our public sector sales and did that. I was having a good time. It was a strong team that we built. And then,
but even in that deal, that was doing business. Like you're selling, you know what I'm saying? It's you got a proposition and then you sold.
Yep.
So you're venturing into this space slowly but surely.
Yeah. I've never had, this is a blessing. I've never had a job that I interviewed for. I always had jobs that I created.
Wow.
And for me, that's just all. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 8.
And that's part of that feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I was 8, I had a paper route, and I was like the top sell like paper route. It got to the point where I had different like blocks that they started giving me, and so I would like hire younger kids because I didn't like waking up in the morning and rolling up the newspapers.
Who does?
So I would hire them and give them like a percentage. And I I had a natural knack of that. I had a t-shirt business, I had a printing company, I had a lot of different businesses growing up, because I couldn't sell drugs, but I had a vending machine. I used to go to Sam's and like buy all my stuff because I don't even know if Costco was out at that time, but
it filled its machine. It make money.
But as I was older, like I always wanted to do things that I enjoyed. So like all of the jobs that I had was either someone asked me, like for instance, the mayor and then the other CEO asked me to come and work for him. But the other folks, I literally just said, hey, this is where I think I could bring value. And they were like, okay, come in and execute. So I was fortunate for that. But then when we took the company public, the leadership changed. They fired the CEO who brought me in, who I had a really good relationship. I reported directly to. And then there was these guys from Silicon Valley came, and they really did not like Detroit. Yeah. And I was also over external affairs too. So the stuff that we used to do from a social, writing checks for community projects and engagement, they were like, yeah, we ain't doing none of that stuff. We just want to focus on business. Yeah. I was like, I can't deal with this. I was like, if you don't have a social mission, and then the morale was bad, I said, you know what, I'm leaving. So I ended up like taking my buyout, walking away. Didn't have one client. I didn't have anything set up. That was another first, because I was like, I always preach, you got to make sure before you quit your job, make sure you have something in line. So, I mean, I literally started from nothing and grind, man. That first 6 to 8 months was rough. Of all the folks that, I was the top seller in the business at the Covison at the time. But when I was out on my own shingle, I wasn't getting return phone calls. Yeah. And I was like, man, it
was like that Dave Chappelle skit where he no longer had the show and he was calling them like, I'm scuba diving with Aquaman. Yeah. So, yeah.
But no, it was the best thing ever happened. It was scary, but, I was fortunate to, like I said, for me, I work best when everything is against me. And I think that's part of the reason why I went to FAMU. I could have went to Michigan State and Michigan and, I got accepted to those schools, but I was like, I know I will get comfortable. And that's to me the worst thing that ever happened is me getting comfortable. So I always make myself uncomfortable. Okay. That's why I like the companies and the ventures that I'm in now. I didn't know anything about water. It's a very expensive business. To get into it. And so every day, every night, this is the thing that keeps me up and I stay up working because one, I realize it's a greater purpose and it's bigger than me. And I'm excited about some things I'm going to be announcing pretty soon around this. Okay. We're going to revolutionize how we consume water and how we think about water. And I ain't talking about bottled water. Okay. I'm talking about the way we get our water and how we utilize technology to manifest things. And it's I'm super excited, man. I'm really excited.
I'm definitely this welcome forum, and I want to hear more. I want to see more as that grows. So as all of this venture into entrepreneurship is starting, what's happening with your family? When do your daughters? When does the family life begin?
Yeah, so the family
and is that happening concurrent?
Nah, so let's see. So I ended up getting married when I was so I started dating Verika. I started dating her right after I left the administration. And she was with me. Like she was like, I got like ride with me because at the time I didn't really trust people. I didn't really want to be around people because I was even then associated. It was like, oh, he's a part of that Kwame thing. Like we don't really
looked at. Like I say, it was a pervasive narrative that well, for me on the outside, I didn't have anything associated. It was like, see, that's what happened when you put a black man in control. Yeah. And then if you were connected, it was like, so what were you stealing?
Exactly. And for the record, my name was never on any FBI documents. I put my head down and was just working hard. The stuff that was happening after I saw the text message and stuff, I was like, when did this stuff happen? I was literally with the mayor all the time. And so it was very interesting. And then just to see, so that's a whole nother thing. But I think I lost my train of thought.
It was more so the family. Like, that's running, and you said she was with you through just this whole, like, I guess, kind of, public shaming, hating, just a time where, people even just sometimes even that they do care, but just their nature in it calling you. You okay? How you doing? What you gonna do?
It's one of those things where, man, in my life when I really reflect back, and now because I'm writing a lot, I'm very reflective. I'm actually just about to publish a biopic of my parents too. I'm so happy about that. Just so I make sure that their legacy and their life is, because I wanted them to write a book, but my parents not going to sit down and write a book. So what I did is I'm going to do a whole amazing. I mean, I hired a really good production team to do the whole biopic. Okay. And anyway, so the family started dating, and then I ended up getting married in 2011. Okay. 2011. And then actually started having kids. Okay. So my first daughter was born, she was birthed 6 months of marriage. So she's 7. I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so all girls. And it's when I see what happened with Kobe Bryant, it was something that really hit me beyond the fact that I love Kobe as a person and as an athlete. But I'm a girl dad. Like my dad told me this when I was a kid. I was like, no, I'm gonna have boys. Like I want to have boys. I would never do it over again. I love girls. My daughters are everything to me. They made me a better man. They made me a better father. They keep me honest. And it's just like the best thing going home and seeing them, like all of the crap that I go through all day as an entrepreneur. Beginning of this week was rough. Yeah. But I had a strong finish today. But when I go home tonight, like Fridays are like family night, so that's cool. Like usually order pizza and watch movies, and that's like our thing. Like I don't compromise. Like
so one second, time out. Let me ask you this, because that actually, when I think about, rest in peace, my mom. When I think about some of the things where my mom would go. Yeah. Because just even with my nephew, like my mom would sit through a lot of horrible movies. Yeah. She, like that Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. She had to like sit through that. And I'm like I can't sit through that now. Like, damn, why was I watching this? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like the what was that? That George the Duck. Like, my dad took us as kids. My dad took me and my sister Dar to one movie. It was the DuckTales movie. And my dad was like, your mama gonna have to start taking you. Yeah. So who picks movies on movies night? That's
they do. The girls pick it. Like,
and you just sit and you
Man, a lot of the stuff I'm like, oh man, it's
so you just like, hey, let's do it. Snowfall 5.
It's a moment where, and I try, and I, as they're getting older, I'm spending way more time with them now. We have daddy-daughter dates like once a week. That's like mandatory. And then I'm getting to a point where I'm trying to do it like individually, because I'm understanding now that they want their own time with daddy and not like the group. Yeah. But no, we like, I don't know what we're gonna watch tonight, but the girls are man, they're the best thing that ever happened, man. Like, I mean, I never had a boy. I don't even want a boy. Like, everybody's like, you want to try for a boy? I'm like, nah. I tried the second time for a boy. After that, I was like, nah, I'm good. I know how to raise girls. Yeah. And, anybody that knows me
more power to you, my brother.
Yeah. And then rest in peace to your moms. I love your mom. Like, she was such a blessing, man. I got a chance to work with her. Yeah. And she was like our mama. Like, she was mom. Like, I called her mama, And I love her so much. And so I'm definitely lifting up love.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my mom had that spirit, that energy. Sometimes when I go into this, it's like you can only imagine, like thinking through. And and that's what's so special about this, because this was the home she grew up in, my grandmother's home. Oh, wow. And this was the last project we did together. So it's like keeping this going. Okay. She was proud because like I get on her nerves sometimes. Yeah. But we were more connected in our passing through this project and just interconnecting. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So like just unique. Like anybody that walks in the podcast studio, you'll see like this frame of like the story of this house. And my mom was just big on like, we should edit this, we should edit that, we should edit this, we should edit that. The last thing we did together before her passing was working on that. So, and it took us, Lord knows, it's only a letter, but you know how it is when moms are touching up stuff. I think it took us 3.5 hours to write that letter. You know what I'm saying? Wow. And I'm thinking like, yo, Ma, I just want to go get some food now. You can just write it. And she's like, nah, you're going to write it. So going back over like exactly how to frame, know, my grandfather's time and service of World War II and stuff like that. Wow. Just real particular about certain things. And definitely when she spoke of the Kilpatrick administration, one of the things that she kept saying was, I can't believe how he's going through all this media scrutiny and coming to work like it doesn't exist. Yeah,
I couldn't either. I mean, it started weighing in on me, and it, like, because I was with him, I saw, and one thing, because I was with him so much, I used to work for him when he was a state representative, when he was a minority whip. That was my first experience with him, he became like the guy who I idolized to my big brother, to like a guy who like we mutually had respect for. It was the point where he would start asking me for thoughts and for opinions, which before, you know, I was just like,
you the young dude.
I'm the young dude, like, go do this, go do, you
Yeah, I
know.
know.
And, you know, I took on a lot of that stuff. Like, I can literally feel, we were so connected. I knew when he had a bad day. I knew when he wasn't feeling, he wanted to get out of this meeting. We were so connected. I knew on what day, what he was feeling like eating based upon the way he's dressed. I mean, we were connected, man. And
It's taco day.
yeah, I was like, and then I know how he like his tacos. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, part of it was I was very protective of him. And, you know, I'm a fighter. And my thing is I ain't never scared of no fight. Like, I mean, I'm not a big dude, but I used to fight a lot when I was younger. And to this day, like when you messing around with somebody who I care about, like, you better be ready to fight. And I guarantee you may win a couple of times, but I'm going to win all the time.
And that's what's unique about, as my dad even talks about, the edge he has in business.
Yep.
The battlefield of business is a different type of battlefield.
No question.
Because even in entrepreneurship, even sitting here now, it's like in this whole interview, my friend Candace has been here and her journey in entrepreneurship. And when she was making the leap, one of the things that I said, like, full time, like, no employment, like, just no strings attached entrepreneurship. And it's like, it's so unique because the battlefield is different, but it's still a battlefield. I submit, you know, I was telling some of the people I know that work, like, I may submit like 7 proposals. And then people I know, you know, will be like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to somebody. And then you meet them, and you submit a proposal, you meet, and they're like, oh, so what's going to happen? I'm like, I may not get that into business till 3-4 years from now.
Definitely.
But I got to keep working.
Yep.
And really, I almost have to have a tenacious attitude where I can get rejected 35 times. I'm looking at it like probability and statistics. I need to submit more proposals to get more money and then make better contacts.
Yep.
You know, and just that dance where you can really feel like, what in the hell is going on? Because nobody's responding to any of these proposals. And
I don't know if you do this, but one of the things that I've learned over the years is like, because I mean, the same way, like on the consulting side, you know, people are like, oh, can you send me a proposal? But what I do is for folks that say that, a lot of times it's people say, I can't afford you. That's what I end up coming to. But then other folks are like, well, no, we're not going in that direction. So I always get feedback. Like, what is it about the proposal that I can change and improve? Because to me, like, always continuously learning and improving.
Staying in the mix.
Exactly. And so there are certain things that I've tweaked about the way I even pitch my proposal. And it's got to a point where, like, sometimes I just know that I'm not going to submit a proposal because I'm like, they not. Because my question is, what's your budget? Like, this is what I cost. This is what is your budget? Can you spend today? When do you plan on? And if they're like, well, we don't really know what I said. Well, when you're ready to like
spend,
let me know, because
and you
your time is valuable.
In the gut, you learn some of this stuff as it goes.
Yep.
You know, and sometimes I was telling somebody, like, one of the proposals I just submitted was like, I think that's a filler. They're going to use my work.
Yep.
To determine what the protocol for the next person that's going to come in. Exactly. They probably want to give the work anyway. Yep. So basically, I'm building the framework for them. Yep. But what I keep so much data and records now that it's like, eventually this won't work, but somebody's going to buy this proposal, and then I'm going to be able to tweak it just like an attorney with contracts and say, I got you. This is how I do a documentary.
Yep.
They didn't buy, but it's going to turn into some money.
Exactly.
That's kind of, and I know that's a weird way of thinking, but that's the only way that I can, you know, I can look at this stuff logically.
Yeah, no question.
You're living on a little bit of sanity when you are saying to yourself, my dad says, I've never been at a point in business, and my dad's been an entrepreneur now my whole life. He's never been at a point in business where he can see 60 days out where money's coming from. But my whole life, it was like when we were younger, it'd be maybe 10 days out.
Yep.
10 becomes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you know, and it flows. So just measuring that whole, like, you know, what, you know, in my quality of life, you know, like, what can I control? How can I budget better?
Yep.
You know, what expenses can I cut? How can I cut expenses? Do I use this credit card? Do I not use this credit card? All of this stuff is, you know, this is what you're juggling when you're an entrepreneur.
No question. Yeah.
And in a family dynamic, that's a whole nother level of stuff.
Oh yeah. So if any, at the least, it's super motivating.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, if it was just me, I can live on. I mean, I was poor growing up. I know how it is, and that's the good thing. I always tell people, at least for me, and it's not. Let me be very clear. I'm not promoting being poor, because I don't think that we, especially us as African Americans, I don't think is not in our DNA to be poor. Now, there are certain there's special situations where some people are physically and mentally unable to have jobs and things like that. But I mean, if you can do the basic reading and writing, and you have, I mean, like I said, work ethic, which I learned from my dad, like we're not made to be poor. Like we just got to figure out how to make it happen. And that's where I feel like you don't learn that kind of stuff in school. They like the things that they need to be teaching in school.
Definitely
they don't,
not
right?
in business school.
Oh no.
And business school was more like, and they bother, I went to definitely a PW. I'll go to, it's not even just a PWI as they say. It is a predominantly white Republican institution. So it's a whole nother realm. But I like it because, at Walsh, I get, it sharpens my skills for learning the theories for which they debate. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, nothing's better than me, in my perspective, having a debate with an economist about how enslavement built the premise for our economy. And then they'll say, no, after World War II did, and then going back and forth over that. I mean, that's a classic debate with any economist. I think for some black people, you may feel like knocking somebody's teeth out, but I just like the intellectual discussions. With that being said, it's employee school. It's not.
It's definitely.
The method of like dealing with really the sale. That art of the sale. You'll learn more from being a door-to-door salesperson probably for like 2 years about business.
And how to conform into a system, a product, like an industrial system, essentially.
Where
you become a robot, essentially, and a disposable one. You know, if they look at you, don't like you, or you said something wrong, like you're fired, and you're replaceable. And so that's why I tell people, like, I mean, I don't knock anyone that has a 9-to-5, but what I say is make sure you have other streams of income, passive income specifically. Like, I mean, basic things like, real estate, and I mean, there's a whole lot of different things you can do.
What I usually say is make sure you're as close to the money-making mechanism as possible.
No question.
Because when I'm thinking about cutting, even me, when I hire contractors or whatever, like, when I think, one of my big revenue streams is video. So if you connect with me on video or audio, you'll probably be around a lot. If your consulting is like, I do table decorations. I'm like, damn, do I need table decoration? You know what I'm saying? Like in the gut, when you're thinking, that's what you're thinking. It's like, so the closer you are to the money making mechanism, if you're LeBron James for the LA Lakers, you're good. If you're the community engagement person, they're thinking, it's like, damn, I mean, do we really need to engage the community? Can't we just have LeBron say, I love you, LA?
And I mean, I always look at entrepreneurship or business ownership as just being problem solvers. You know what I mean? Like when I look back, when I was younger, all of the businesses I had were a solution to problems. The reason why I started a vending machine is because they took the vending machines out of our school.
Wow.
Oh, and actually what happened was this. So they took the vending machines out of our school, but then I was like, okay, well then I started going to Sam's and buying like
candy. And you were just like the candy guy with the book bag.
I had it in my book bag. Or, in the t-shirts, like people wanted like citywide t-shirts and things like that. Nobody was doing it. I had a guy who made t-shirts for like $2 or $3. I put a markup on it, selling them for $15, $20. I mean, I was making in like elementary, middle school, I was making like $300 a week.
And that
off of like all of my businesses that I was doing.
That is great money. That was that's more money than some of your friends that were selling drugs, even because oftentimes that's one of the things I definitely, as a person that studies financing and just how money goes, drug dealers are not making the money that rappers claim that drug dealers are making. Even
like
though it's a belief. I mean, it's
ones
some,
higher up.
but let's put it like that. But that's any business. Like the probability of you becoming, the story of that is a higher probability of you doing any business, being a guy that makes pallets and sells them to trucking companies.
And the longevity of it is not, you don't have really no longevity, because I mean, you can get caught any day. I mean, I don't know any person that sold drugs for more than like 2 or 3 years for real, and never got caught in jail. I mean, so that's what I always tell my friends, and I tell a lot of like my friends that are like I guess most of my friends are retiring from professional sports now. But, when my best friend, when he went to the NFL, one of the things I told him, I said, you need to get a financial advisor. He's like, bro, I don't make enough money. I was like, man, you making league minimum. What do you mean you don't make enough money? I was like, so it's just that whole education piece. And so like now, he graduated. I mean, he left. But I mean, he still say today, like, man, I wish I would have been better with my money and investing and things like that. He was in the league for like 7 or 8 years, making $1 million a year. Like he's making 1.5.
You making me think about just a straight up regular podcast with you right now, because we're getting into just due to the idea. So when you speak about poverty and the idea of scarcity, and now I'm getting into some of the science of like Black economics for real. Some Claud Anderson, some George Young. So like our propensity to spend is extremely high. Because we're looking to mask our hysteria, you know, our post-traumatic stress disorder through what they call it, I guess, like, you know, some people will say retail therapy, but like it's like consumption. So like the you know, Jay-Z even had a post about it one time. It's like, you know, I'm in this picture and I have the least amount of jewelry on, but I'm the person with the most amount of money. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, but at one point in time, he had the most amount of jewelry on to try to validate his confidence, who he was as a person. So like some of that I think is our propensity to spend too. You know what I mean? Like, and where that comes from that mind of scarcity of like, damn, you know, it come and go. You know,
and that's actually one of the chapters in my book. You know, changing the mindset of that consumer mindset of being producers. Like, I mean, the thing is, we make everything hot. Like our culture, we make everything hot. You name it, hip hop. I mean, that's primarily the reason why I got into the cannabis business. I don't even really, that's not really my thing. I don't really like smoke or anything like that. But I got into it because I started seeing trends of a lot of African Americans that are getting bought out, that's getting kicked out. The system is like really not in its favor.
It's definitely
and
not.
Then it's I mean, you got to have a lot of money on hand.
I mean, really, the amount of, if people know more about the laws, is my dad, and this is one of the things I'm partnering with my dad on, as far as like how the accounting will be delivered. First off, the accounting is very tough and it's very strenuous. But also the cash reserves you need to have, and not being able to bank this money, and how you can take this money, you basically, like, it ostracizes not just a lot of Black businesses, it almost ostracizes any independent business, because you almost need cash reserve. You need millions of dollars in cash reserves just to think about entering the game, how it exists. Also, it's like one for one. You can't do, you need to do accrual based accounting. I'm getting real deep into this. You cannot do cash based accounting, meaning that you can't say, you know, these are the expenses, and these expenses against the revenue is how we can make our net profit. No, you need to do accrual-based accounting. So you need to do piece by piece by piece by piece by piece, and segment down in some form of piece by piece. If not, it's a rule on the IRS books where all revenue, meaning gross revenue, is taxable. So that means marijuana business, you made $10 million. It don't matter that you spent 9.5 in staffing, packaging, location, heat, electricity. Guess what? You're getting taxed on $10 million. So,
and that's the thing. Like, so, I mean, so it's very discouraging for a lot of folks, and in particular folks that was like selling before they went to jail. So, you know, so what I did was I interviewed the top folks in Michigan, like the top cannabis growers, and particularly those that are vertically integrated, and you know, asking them about their social equity program.
And wait, you got to explain vertical integration. We in overtime, but I feel like I'm in business class right now, but we giving some game to folks.
Nah, I mean, it's essentially, you know, from seed to sale. I mean, people who actually take the seed and literally from processing to, you know, testing, all that, I mean, provisioning, grow, all the way to retail.
Another thing introduced to me first through Claud Anderson's Black Labor, White Wealth, a vertical market.
Exactly. And so like that's one of the things that I talk about in the book too, is like making sure you want to be able to control the whole value chain. So when I came and approached them, it was a couple of things. One, I wanted to see how serious they was with social equity, right? What are we going to do to expunge people's records? Like, how are we going to be involved in that from a legislative standpoint? How are we going to train people? How are we actually, I told myself I want to have a certain percentage of the company with value, like value add, value, a part of the value chain, and not just employees. Because a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, we're going to hire people in the community. And again, like I have a different mindset. I'm like, we can do that. And I was like, that's cool. But like, to me, I'm trying to change our mindsets of being employees and being owners. So, you know, if you have a transportation business, I want to make sure that as an African American, you are a part of our value chain. If you have an energy company or an energy saving company, I want to make sure you're a part of this value chain because you have a specific niche and need. And then also I was just like, I want to have equity in the company. And I said, the only people I'm going to go out, I said, I'll raise $1 million for you all. And it's going to be for only African American investors. So we're able to sit at the table because we're like, we got a job, we own part of this company. And so specifically in our Detroit dispensary, our Pontiac and Flint, and that we're going to be owners of those particular dispensaries. And at the end of the day, obviously we don't have 100% because, you got to have money to pay for all that.
Right.
But one, we're investors, so we're at the table. We're part of the value chain. We're also going to help with folks when, coming out of jail, helping them with their expungement and then providing training opportunities. But then we're doing like this young entrepreneur grow program that I'm actually kind of leading right now.
Wow.
So I said, I want to be an active investor. I said, I can easily come and write a check and then walk away. I said, I actually want a title in the company. I want to make sure I run the strategic partnerships and the social equity program. That's my project. So I want to make sure that it's going to get done because I don't, it's one thing to say, I'm going to write this check and then you do it and expect them to do it. I want to make sure I do it with integrity. I work a lot with and I'm learning a lot from because I've not been in the cannabis industry before this. So there's groups right now that are organized organically that's been doing this like since the law became when you can do it as a caregiver. And so what I'm doing is catching up. I'm sitting and listening to them in the community meetings. These are folks that nobody hear about, but these folks have been at the front line of this and the policy side. So I'm getting caught up and building with them and like, what can we do better and try to make us, and we're actually going to be launching our social equity plan. We just finalized. I just finished that up. It should be hitting our website soon. It's Pleasantries is the company. So you've probably seen some of the billboards on the highway. It's really creative billboards, but it's if you go to enjoypleasantries.com, you see kind of stuff that we're doing, and we consider ourselves to be like the I would say Shinola, but not necessarily Shinola, but the Ralph Lauren of cannabis. Okay. Our strands. We have some of the best. Our CEO is one of the best growers. Anybody that knows our CEO, he's a legendary grower, so he knows what he's doing. And we're not holding any punches. We have quality cannabis that's going to help people with healing and also recreational. But then we also have a company with the culture that is indicative of what the community is and what they want. Wow. So I'm excited about that. And so that's
deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
We're going to close there and we're going to come back eventually because I definitely have more to share and think. I'm going to ask you one of the questions because I got the usual Detroit is different question.
Yep.
What was your very first car? Year, make, and model, and what year did you get it?
I had a 1988 Plymouth Sundance, a tan. It was actually a hand-me-down. So I'm the baby.
Okay.
My middle brother had the car first, and it was like in perfect condition.
Okay.
But 1988, how do I remember that? And when I first started driving, my brother went off to college and gave me his car. Okay. And I treated that thing. Again, I came from nothing, so we always cherished everything. To this day, I got clothes that I wear that I've had for 10, 15 years, and you can tell that it's not like I had it for 10, because my dad taught pride. Like whatever you have, you don't have to have a lot of it, but take care of what you have. Yeah. And so my car stayed clean. If you look at my car outside right now, like my car is clean. It's just everything that I do. And it's not about how much I pay for it. It's like how I treat it because I value that. And that's funny. Okay. I had a lesson with my daughters about that, telling them, a lot of times their mother car is really dirty and junky. And I get on them about that. I'm like, because that, like, your car, your house, everything about it, your presentation is a representation of who you are and your character. And so you want to make sure that, you want to protect your character because that's everything. And so, and then appreciate everything you have because you ain't got to have a lot of it.
Where was the first place you went when you got the ride?
Man, where did I go? I don't remember. It might have been like McDonald's or something like that. That's when I was eating fast food. Okay. Probably. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's it. If people want to get in contact with you, find out more about the business, just get to the dispensary, whatever, how do they connect?
So I have like 3 or 4 websites, but you can I'm on Instagram a lot. So Jonathan, JONATHAN .QUARLES. You can hit me up on Instagram. I might get JonathanQuarles.com, my website, which is, I need to update it. But but those two areas you can definitely, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay. There we go. Jonathan, this was fun. Thank you so much. It was worth the wait.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Peace.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.